Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. This is a community where curious seekers gather to explore social, spiritual, and ethical issues in an accepting and nurturing environment. Unitarian Universalism supports the freedom of conscience of each individual, as together we seek to be a force for good in the world. My name is Karen Rose Gredler, and on behalf of the congregation, I would like to extend a special welcome to any visitors who are with us today, in addition to our regulars. We are a welcoming congregation, so whoever you are and wherever you are on your life's journey, we celebrate your presence among us. As we gather in this place at this time, let us remember we are all visitors in this life. We come together to find meaning and hope with all the other visitors in life. Let us join our hearts and minds together as we celebrate life together. I invite you to join me now in a few moments of silence for contemplation, meditation, prayer, as we settle in and come fully into this time and place together.
Good morning. We're going to sing a hymn that may not be familiar to all of us, number 116. And before I ask you to rise in body and or spirit, I want to explain that this is a call and response song, so it may be the easiest new hymn you ever learn. I'll be the leader. If any of you wants to sing along with me, you will not get any dirty looks. If you want to repeat after me, as it was designed to do, you'll be singing with the Reverend Dr. Doug. Please rise in body and or spirit. I'm on my way.
I'm on my way
to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. I'm on my way, come and go with me. I asked my sister, come and go with me. I asked my sister, come and go with me. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. I asked my brother, come and go with me. I asked my brother, come and go with me. I asked my brother, come and go with me. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. That's it. If they say no, I'll go anyhow. If they say no, I'll go anyhow. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, and I won't turn back. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. Great job, you're all drafted for the choirs.
And our opening words are offered by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. If you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. I invite you to rise in all the ways that you do and join in our chalice sliding words that are printed in your order of service as we join our voices together and say, as we kindle the flame of our faith, may we remember that vision is a choice. In every moment, we look forward or behind to the hopeful horizon or the hard road at our feet. To those already in the circle or those who have been shut out, we return today to remember that we become the vision we embrace. May our time together today help us choose wisely and with courage. I invite you to turn towards each other and offer a friendly greeting. Hello, my dear Reverend Dr. Doug. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Good to meet you. So I'm going to read a story, so if anyone would like to come forward to see the illustrations better, you are welcome to come up and join me. Really? Because it blocks the view? I know. It's a good book, though, I think. Come on. The pictures will also be projected, so everyone can read along. So probably many of you have actually heard the story before, but it's really good, so it's worth repeating. This is After the Fall, How Humpty Dumpty Got Back Up Again by Dan Satat. And part of the reason that I'm reading this is that this month we're talking about vision, what it is that we hope for the future. But today in particular, we're talking about how times of change in our lives can make a huge difference. And this is a great story to help us think about that. So, my name is Humpty Dumpty. This was my favorite spot, high up on the wall. I know it's an odd place for an egg to be, but I loved being close to the birds. Then one day, I fell. I'm sort of famous for that part. Folks called it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand. It was just an accident, but it changed my life. Fortunately, all the king's men managed to put me back together. Well, most of me. There were some parts that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. After that day, I became afraid of heights. I was so scared that it kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. is the best cereal. The sugary cereal is on top. So I walked past the wall every day, and I would think about climbing that ladder again. I really miss the birds and being high above the city, but I could never do it because I knew that accidents can happen. Eventually, I settled for watching the birds from the ground. It wasn't the same, but it was better than nothing. Then one day, an idea flew by. Yes. Making planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches. But day after day, I kept trying and trying. Until I got it just right. My plane was perfect, and it flew like nothing could stop it. I hadn't felt that happy in a long time. It wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds, but it was close enough. Unfortunately, accidents happen. They always do. It got up on the wall. Oh no, oh no. It's stuck on the wall. I almost walked away again, but then I thought about all the time I'd spent working on my plane and all the other things I'd missed. I decided I was going to climb that wall. But the higher I got, the more nervous I felt. I didn't want to admit it. I was terrified. I didn't look up. I didn't look down. I just kept climbing, one step at a time. Until I was no longer afraid. Maybe now you won't think of me as that egg who was famous for falling. Hopefully, you'll remember me as the egg that got back up. And learned how to fly. So, sort of through that time of change, he became even more himself. So, there are many ways that change happens for us. And one of the most common ways is the cycle of the seasons, when we move from autumn to winter, from summer back into autumn again, that full cycle of the year. So we will sing you out actually with a song that reminds us that we are in a time of change. We're moving into the autumn. And so we'll sing 51 together, Lady of the Season's Laughter, to honor that this is a time of change for us. Thank you for sharing this time with me. Have a great experience at class. We'll see you back at the end of the service.
Lady of the season's laughter, in the summer's warmth be near, when the winter follows after. Teach our spirits not to fear. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning year. Sister of the evening starlight, in the falling shadows stay here among us till the far light of tomorrow's dawning ray. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning day. Mother of the generations, in whose love all life is worth, everlasting celebrations bring our labors safe to birth. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning earth. Goddess of all time's progression, stand with us when we engage, hands and hearts to end oppression, writing history's fairer page. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning age.
You may be seated. Karin and I will share a reading by Dan and Perry entitled The Trapeze.
Sometimes I feel that my life is a series of trapeze swings. I'm either hanging on to a trapeze bar swinging along, or a few moments in my life hurtling across space in between trapeze bars. Most of the time, I spend my life hanging on for dear life to my trapeze bar of the moment. It carries me along at a certain steady rate of swing, and I have the feeling that I'm in control of my life. I know most of the right questions, and even some of the right answers. But once in a while, as I'm merrily, or not so merrily, swinging along, I look out ahead of me in the distance, and what do I see? I see another trapeze bar swinging toward me. It's empty, and it has my name on it. It is my next step, my growth, my aliveness coming to get me. In my heart of hearts, I know that for me to grow, I must release the grip on this present, well-known bar to move to a new one. Each time it happens to me, I hope that I won't have to grab the new one. But I know that I must totally release my grip on my old bar, and for some moment in time, I must hurtle across space before I can grab on to the new one. Each time I am afraid that I will miss, that I will be crushed on the unseen rocks in the chasm between the trapeze bars. But I do it anyway. Perhaps this is the essence of what the mystics call the faith experience. No guarantees, no net, no insurance policy, but you do it anyway, because somehow to keep hanging on to that old trapeze bar is no longer on the list of alternatives.
It's called transition, and I have come to believe that it is the only place real change occurs. I mean, real change, not the pseudo change that only lasts until the next time my old buttons get punched. I've noticed that in our culture, this transition place is looked upon as a no thing, a place between places, the scary, confusing, disorienting nowhere that must be gotten through as fast and as unconsciously as possible. But those moments should be honored, even savored.
Yes, with all of the feelings of pain and fear and being out of control that can, but not necessarily do, accompany transitions, they are still the most alive, growth-filled, passionate, expansive moments in our lives. It can be terrifying. It can also be enlightening. In the true sense of the word, hurtling through the void, we may just learn how to fly.
Here ends the reading. All this month, we are exploring vision. Last week, I offered to those present some thoughts about one particular kind of understanding of how we engage that vision, but in particular, how we engage it by bringing our own vision for our lives to this place. how we begin where we are, with the human spirit, that is, within each and every person, comprised of our thoughts and our feelings, our memories, our sense of ourself, our essence that makes us uniquely ourselves. And from that place, from that deep truth, we seek to connect with the thread of purposefulness that returns us again and again to a place of meaning. And that place of meaning helps us shape our vision of our life. That is indeed an essential place where the conversation about vision always begins. We have to bring our transcending and transformative personal vision with us to the table to have an authentic conversation. It is a crucial place of grounding. But there is always more to that conversation. There is also always the deep grounding of your neighbor that opens up the conversation even further to new levels of richness and, yes, complexity. And as I talked about last week, there is always the larger world and its deep hunger calling to us and asking for us to pay attention and let that voice be part of the conversation as well. So today, we explore the conversation as it invites us into this time and this space in the life of both our congregation, but also almost certainly your life as well. We are intentionally exploring that this is a time of transition. And transition is something that you already know quite well. You go through it all the time. You change careers. You move to another city or another country. You lose a job. You take care of and eventually lose a parent. You are left by someone that you've committed your life to, or you are the person who leaves. There are kids that move out of your house and then sometimes back again. You age, you retire, your retirement account crashes, your body ages. Sometimes disease does incredibly difficult things to each of us or to people that we love. Babies are born and they grow. Each of those powerful times of change are an opportunity for transition. Each of them in their own way is a new trapeze bar. This summer, there was also a time of transition in this congregation, an important one. You let go of something familiar and exhilarating, the resiliently tangible trapeze bar of Reverend Michael Schuler's presence as the lead minister of this congregation. And as you know, we are working intentionally in this time to shape a new understanding, an understanding of an exciting and collaborative shared ministry with Reverend Kelly Crocker and new elements like Karen Bringleson and Drew Collins as part of our staff worship team, and continuing to see what is possible with our amazing staff and our congregational leaders. We are in a time of change as well. What I want to talk with you about for a few minutes speaks to both personal change and the important conversation in the midst of change here in this place. For the coming months, I have been called to work with you as an intentional transition period minister, with the clarity, I hope, on both sides that I cannot fill the ministry position that is open here. In this time, I will help your journey, but I am not the next trapeze bar. I am not here to replace Reverend Michael as if that were possible. And I'm not even here to be not Reverend Michael. I am here to be my own sweet, strange self and to do the kind of ministry that I do. To give you an example, and I will try to make it an authentic one, of yet another style of ministry. But most of all, I will invite you again and again to use this time well, and to not be too hasty to even look for the next trapeze bar. To encourage you, if you can, to enjoy the flight between the trapeze bars. And even if you suffer from a fear of flying, and so many of us do, at least to understand why this time is so important and what it is asking of us. William Bridges, in his book Managing Transition, tells us why this time between trapeze bars is so essential. He talks about the neutral zone, the time when what was certain about our past has left us, and what seems certain for the future has not yet arrived. A time like now. We know what the permanent, of course always in quotation marks, reality of this congregation was. We know something about where we are right now, but how it will look in a deeper way in a few years is utter mystery. And this is a time in organizations of amazing opportunity. That time between when everything is uncertain is an opportunity to encounter the new and interesting, to pursue goals, to make changes with a particular kind of energy and courage. André Gide reminds us that one does not discover new lands without consenting to lose sight of the shore for a very long time. Well, we won't be doing it for that long of a time, but this is a rare and powerful opportunity in this congregation. And perhaps it would happen in your life as well. Now, this trapeze metaphor. I am not a trapeze artist. If I were to partake literally in this metaphor of the trapeze, it might not go so well. It might turn into a very different kind of metaphor, as a matter of fact. But having talked to people who are skilled as trapeze artists, they teach us some essential things about this time. They remind us that one of the essential things is the ability to focus in the here and now, to let our full senses and our concentration be given to what is actually in front of us. When we are flying between trapeze, that is not the time to daydream or to make our laundry list. The same is true of times of change. Sure, there are times when you can dream about what the future is. But over and over again, you are best equipped if you bring yourself fully to this moment. And the trapeze artist is able to focus and to let go and do the work because they have practiced the ongoing skill of paying attention, of knowing about what's happening in their body and their mind. And so they are able, instead of being overwhelmed by the new, to allow themselves to encounter it as it is, and to move through the air with a more practiced ease. We don't have to do it perfectly here for it to still do some of its essential work. As a matter of fact, some of what happens will be very uncomfortable if this is typical of what happens to an organization in change. You likely at times will be anxious about some of the changes that happen, and that will cause a spike of disorientation and doubt within the congregation. During that time, especially if it's amongst the leaders, no matter how efficient the organization is, it will be less productive. More of its energy will be spent dealing with the anxiety about change. And some people will want to rush through this time forward into the new. And some people will use this time to beg us to return to familiar turf. Several years ago, where this congregation was great, but this time of change, even with all of its upheaval, allows people to see possibility. C.K. Chesterton reminds us an adventure is only an inconvenience rightly understood. And an inconvenience is only an adventure wrongly understood. This is a time that offers incredible possibility. Perhaps another image that invites us towards understanding what this time is all about asks us to understand it as a series of random moments. Now, to really get what I'm talking about, we need to return to the original meaning of that word random, which I bet some of you did not know. Random is that instant when a horse is galloping at full speed and in an extraordinary state of momentum and movement, all four hooves are off of the ground, and for a split second, that horse is no longer earthbound. What if, encountering this new era, we were to embrace the power of our freedom as it points us toward the lift that results from total immersion and surrender to the truths that reveal themselves now? When we seem adrift from all that is grounding and stabilizing, we may rest in the wisdom that we are enfolded in possibility. Where there is much in flux, much is possible. I invite you to percolate on a couple of questions just for a moment. In this congregation, if you could give yourself to a possibility for the future of this place, what would you, as you sit here this morning, most hope for First Unitarian Society? And as importantly, what would you be willing to work for to bring about that change? And because it is always also about what is happening in your own life. For you, if you were to shift some understanding of uncertainty in this time to a sort of creative exploration opportunity, what place in your life right now might be calling you to explore, to risk, to see it as possibility? What occurs to you now as you sit here in this space? There are many ways that we are called to be fully present to the power of change. Sometimes it is much more metaphorical, and sometimes it is quite literal. One of the situations, and I have them quite often, where I found myself thinking as a minister, how did I get myself into this situation? One of the most unusual, at least, had to be the day that I found myself standing on a plank attached to a tree 75 feet or so in the air. Nothing to hold on to, staring down at 25 people, all clergy, none of whom I'd ever met before. It sounds sort of like a nightmare, doesn't it? And I was about as uncomfortable and feeling exposed in that moment as I can imagine. But what was also true was in that moment, I felt magically alive. Now, how I got into that predicament was that a few months before that, in the midst of a time of major change in my life, I had enrolled in the pastoral leadership program that is sponsored by Seattle University. It requires that you be recommended by someone who's gone through the program, and it asks only for people who have been in their setting of ministry for many years to come together with other people who have experience to talk about what leadership, what authority, what your understanding of ministry is now. And so they decided it would be a good idea to have us start with a high and low ropes course together. And at the culmination of this day working with these people, we were to stand on top of this plank, high in the treetops, and yell out to the universe our intention for the coming months, and yes, we were attached to a belay, then fling ourselves forward into the abyss. Well, let me just say that I am terrified of heights. I am terrified of ladders, and I am terrified of transferring myself from a ladder to a high and precarious height. This was not a delightful experience for me. And it maybe a little more surprisingly, standing in front of total strangers and declaring my own deep personal truths is never something I do lightly either. But there I was, standing in front of everyone, and I took a deep breath, and I honestly don't remember exactly what I said. I'm sure if I were honest about my intention at that moment, it would be that I not soil myself in front of my peers. And I'm happy to say I succeeded at that intention score, but I screamed something and launched forth off of that perch. And in that moment, for a split second, I was held by this sort of sense of being suspended, and then I plummeted. Oh, did I ever plummet? But the thing is, in addition to being terrifying, it was one of the most amazingly safe feeling experiences I've ever had. Because the thing is, I knew that below me, every single participant had their hands on the rope that was helping me not break every bone in my body. And that each of them would take their turn up in that very same place. And it was essential that we do what we could to keep each other safe. And we did. It doesn't matter all these years later that I don't remember exactly what I yelled in that moment as my intention. What does matter is that in that moment I was aware that my 10-year relationship had ended just a few months before that, and everything was a question mark for me. In that moment, I was certain that my then about 11-year ministry needed some time in the next couple of years to come to an end. I could feel it deep within me. What really mattered in that moment is that I gave myself fully and flung myself not just off of that perch, but into the arms of the universe to let it do its work in my life. In one way or another, either metaphorically or literally, again and again, you do the same thing. And when you give yourself fully and openly, what can happen in your life is amazing. In these coming months, you will be invited to think new things, experience new experiences together, and reflect on them together, to be in conversation with each other, to give yourself fully to this time and use it well, to explore what is possible for this community, to understand more deeply what we might encounter as we gallop wildly forward in our life together. Nikki Giovanni reminds us a lot of people resist transition and therefore never allow themselves to enjoy who they are. Embrace the change, no matter what it is. Once you do, you can learn about the new world you're in and take advantage of it. In the coming weeks, moving into months, may we seize the opportunity of this transition, give ourselves to it, and let it make its changes, helping us encounter a new world. So may it be. Amen, and blessed be. Each week, in a variety of ways, we are invited to give ourselves to the world around us. And in many ways, the offering is an opportunity to do that well and thoughtfully. This week, we continue the opportunity very specifically to share some of our abundance with the larger world. We will be giving in the 50-50 outreach program to the Native Vote program of the Wisconsin League of Conservation. There's more information in the order of service about the work of that program. As we receive and give our morning offering, may a spirit of abundance and generosity be present in this space.
We appreciate the many gifts of those who helped our service this morning. On sound, we had David Briles. Our greeters this morning were Claire Box and Gail Bliss. Today's ushers were Brian Chasna, Mary Savage, Nancy Daly. This morning's coffee and hospitality is provided by Lois Evenson and Sandy Flitch. At the welcome table today is John McEvena And our lay ministers this morning are Ann Smiley and Dennis Collins. We do have a special opportunity to let you know about this morning. We invite you to stop by the Journey Circles information table in the Commons after service. Journey Circles are our new small covenant groups that will focus on the congregation's monthly worship themes. They are an integral part of the theme-based ministry that you are hearing so much about. Our Journey Circles will offer the gift of listening to one another and attentiveness to each other's thoughts, ideas, and reflections. Guided by the monthly themes, a connection to and engagement with others from our faith community is at the heart of this work. Journey Circles will connect each of us to one another and to the greater whole. We invite you to peruse the information in the Commons and to sign up for a Journey Circle.
And each week we join together as a community who also gathers with joys and sorrows written on our hearts. In this place, we love and are loved. We give and we receive in return. We come together to find strength and common purpose, turning our minds and our hearts toward one another, seeking to bring into our circle of concern all who need our love and our support. Written in our book of cares of the congregation this morning, we remember. Our hearts are with PK, who is struggling with the passing of his wife from cancer after 40 years of marriage. And Liz and Bill Wessel ask you to welcome Danielle Avery Wessel into the world. She and her parents live in the Seattle area. We also hold that this week, the Madison area had an experience that many cities and places have had. We were part of an active shooter experience, and there were people who were affiliated with the congregation who were directly affected by that experience. We also know that in that same 24-hour period, there were 2 other active shooter instances throughout the country in which lives were lost. We hold in our hearts and minds the continued power of gun violence in our world and seek to find ways to be an agent for peace and justice in the midst of that truth. We remember all the joys and the sorrows that are too tender to share in the fullness of our hearts. We remember also that we are part of a web of life that makes us one with all humanity and with the universe. May we be grateful for the miracle of life that we share in the hope that gives us the power to care, to remember, and to love. By the power and grounding of our breath, in being present in this moment, may we offer blessing and commit ourselves to acting in love where we may. So may it be. I invite you to rise in all the ways that we do as we join our voices together, as we sing together hymn number 1018, Come and Go With Me.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll be freedom in that land where I'm bound. There'll be freedom in that land. There'll justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land. There'll be justice in that land where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land and clapping. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land. They'll be singing in that land where I'm bound.
So, what might we learn from the stallion's ecstatic encounter at random? What might it say about our new day? That we practice together the cycle of letting ourselves be carried by the momentum of life and touching down and again to the grounding of love, of community, of what we know to be true. This is how we make our way. This is how we live the life that we are given. So may it be. We extinguish this light, but not the light of wisdom, not the warmth of community, not the fire of our commitment. These remain in our lives until we gather in this place again. Before you rush headlong into your day, let's take just a moment together and sit and listen to the gift of music.